John Snow was born on 15 March 1813 in York, the first of 9 children. His family lived near the River Ouse, in a poor neighborhood prone to flooding and contamination. The streets were unsanitary, and the river carried runoff from cemeteries and markets. From an early age, Snow showed a strong aptitude for mathematics. In 1827, at age 14, he began a medical apprenticeship with William Hardcastle in Newcastle upon Tyne. He gained early clinical experience treating patients in the region. In 1832, during his apprenticeship, Snow encountered his first cholera outbreak in the coal mining village of Killingworth. He treated many victims, gaining first-hand experience with the disease's rapid and deadly course. Snow adopted teetotalism and signed an abstinence pledge in 1835. He became a vegetarian, drinking only distilled water he believed to be pure. He avoided alcohol and animal products for years, seeking a clean lifestyle. Between 1832 and 1835, Snow worked as an assistant to a colliery surgeon in Burnopfield and later in Patley Bridge. He gained experience in treating injuries and diseases among miners, often in harsh conditions. In October 1836, Snow enrolled at the Hunterian School of Medicine on Great Windmill Street in London. He studied anatomy and surgery, dissecting cadavers and attending lectures in a bustling urban medical school. Snow began working at Westminster Hospital in 1837. He trained in surgery and patient care, developing skills that would later support his work in anesthesia and public health. He was admitted as a member of the Royal College of Surgeons on 2 May 1838. His surgical training was rigorous, involving hands-on practice and examination of medical cases. Snow graduated from the University of London in December 1844 and earned his MD. He set up a practice at 54 Frith Street in Soho, serving as a surgeon and general practitioner. He joined the Westminster Medical Society, where he presented clinical findings and published articles. His interest in respiratory diseases led him to study neonatal respiration and oxygen use. In 1841, Snow published on asphyxiation and on the resuscitation of stillborn children. His work explored how newborns begin breathing and how temperature affects respiration. Snow began experimenting with ether in 1843 to study its effects on respiration. He observed how patients reacted and refined methods for safe administration. In 1847, he published On the Inhalation of the Vapor of Ether, a guide for using ether in surgery. He became the most skilled anesthetist in Britain within 2 years. Snow studied chloroform after it was introduced by James Young Simpson in 1847. He recognized its potency and the need for precise dosing to avoid fatal outcomes. In January 1848, 15-year-old Hannah Greener died after receiving chloroform during a toenail procedure. Snow investigated her death and realized the risks of improper administration. Snow published his findings in a letter to The Lancet. He emphasized careful dosing and monitoring when using chloroform, warning against reckless application. He designed apparatus to safely deliver ether and a mask for chloroform. His devices allowed controlled dosing, improving patient safety during surgery. Snow never patented his anesthetic methods. He focused on research and publication, believing knowledge should be shared freely among physicians. He administered chloroform to 77 obstetric patients. He applied it during the second stage of labor, controlling the dose so women remained semi-conscious. Many physicians and the Church of England opposed using anesthesia in childbirth, seeing pain as natural or divinely ordained. Snow challenged this belief with clinical evidence. On 7 April 1853, Queen Victoria asked Snow to administer chloroform during the birth of her 8th child, Prince Leopold. The procedure was successful and widely reported. Snow repeated the procedure for the birth of Princess Beatrice in 1857. Royal endorsement led to wider acceptance of obstetric anesthesia across Britain. Snow was skeptical of the miasma theory, which claimed diseases like cholera were spread by bad air. He believed evidence pointed to another cause. In 1849, he published On the Mode of Communication of Cholera, arguing cholera was transmitted through contaminated water, not foul air. He observed that cholera outbreaks followed water sources. In 1854, another epidemic struck Soho, and Snow focused on the Broad Street area. On 31 August 1854, a severe cholera outbreak began in Soho. Over 3 days, 127 people died. By 10 September, more than 500 had died. Snow interviewed residents and worked with Reverend Henry Whitehead. They traced deaths to the broadstreetpump, suspecting its water was the source. He found that nearly all deaths occurred near the broadstreetpump. Only 10 deaths were in homes closer to other pumps. In 5 of those 10 cases, families said they preferred broadstreetpump water. 3 victims were children who attended school nearby. Of 61 deaths linked to the pump, all victims drank its water either regularly or occasionally. Snow concluded the outbreak was tied to this single source. On 7 September, Snow met with the Board of Guardians of St. James's Parish. He presented his findings, urging action to stop use of the pump. The next day, the handle of the Broad Street pump was removed. Residents could no longer draw water from it, though the epidemic was already declining. Snow noted that many residents had fled the area, reducing deaths. He could not confirm whether the well still contained active cholera poison. He created a dot map showing cholera cases clustered around the pump. The visual pattern supported his conclusion about the water's role. He compared two water companies, Southwark and Vauxhall, which drew from polluted Thames water, and Lambeth, which used cleaner upstream sources. Homes supplied by Suffolk and Vauxhall had a cholera rate 14 times higher than those served by Lambeth. The difference was statistically clear. Workers at the Broad Street Brewery did not contract cholera. They drank beer instead of water, and brewing boiled the liquid, killing bacteria. Later, researchers found the pump was dug just 3 feet from an old cesspit. Fecal bacteria had leaked into the well. A baby's soiled nappy had been washed into the cesspit. The waste entered the groundwater and contaminated the pump's water supply. The cesspit's opening had been under a house rebuilt after a fire. Street widening obscured its location, leaving contamination undetected. Snow investigated another outbreak in Deptford. He found clean water had turned impure due to a leak in pipes near sewage. Residents let water run until it cleared, unaware it was contaminated. Snow concluded the outbreak stemmed from sewage, mixing with drinking water. After the epidemic ended, officials replaced the Broad Street pump handle. They had acted urgently but rejected Snow's theory afterward. Accepting Snow's explanation meant acknowledging fecal-oral transmission, a concept too disturbing for many to accept at the time. In 1866, William Farr, once a critic, accepted Snow's findings during a cholera outbreak at Bromley by Bow. He ordered people not to drink unboiled water. Farr still denied Snow's full theory but accepted water's role in spreading cholera. His own data later helped support Snow's conclusions. Snow's work laid the foundation for modern epidemiology. His use of statistics and mapping became standard tools in public health. He swam for exercise and lived at 18 Sackville Street from 1852. He never married and remained dedicated to his medical work. Snow's health declined in his 30s. He abandoned veganism, believing it contributed to a renal disorder, and resumed eating meat and drinking wine. He suffered a stroke on 10 June 1858 while working in his office. He was 45 years old and never recovered. He died 6 days later, on 16 June 1858. He was buried in Brompton Cemetery, leaving behind a legacy in medicine and public health. Some speculate his early death was linked to long exposure to anesthetic gases, which are now known to have harmful effects. A plaque at the site of the Broad Street pump shows a pump with its handle removed. The ground is covered with red granite. A pub nearby is named the Johnsnow. The Johnsnow Society meets there annually for the Pump Vandal Lecture. The lecture symbolizes ongoing challenges in public health. Members remove and replace a pump handle in ceremony. Snow's grave is marked by a funerary monument. In York, a blue plaque commemorates his birthplace on North Street.